The Chenango Forks Board of Education regular meeting, July 27th, 2021. Aaron, will you please conduct roll call?
Amy O'Brien.
Here.
Mary Collins. Here. Michael Vavra.
Here.
Lynn Lockwood.
Here.
And Christine Webb. Here.
We have a quorum. I call the meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. 1.3, public comment. Jason Pebbles would like to speak. Okay.
You want to come up? Or?
Sure, thank you.
How you doing? Good evening, everyone. Jason Pebbles, teacher in the district, most of you guys know. Just a quick question about the superintendent hiring process. So I know that originally the goal was to bring in some other stakeholders to try and help with the interview process. And the way it reads on the website now is that that will only happen when there are 2 candidates remaining at the end. Is that set in stone, or is that something that the board would consider bringing in those stakeholders before the field is narrowed down to 2?
At this moment, it is the intention of the board to bring it down to 2 finalists to
Okay,
present
I
to the
know-
committees.
I know in speaking with a lot of colleagues and even some community members as well, people were hoping to be involved a little sooner in the process rather than when there were only 2 candidates left. So I don't know, I wanted to bring that to the attention of the board, especially CFTA, a member of the union, and speaking to some of our constituents there. I think we'd like to be a little bit more involved than when there are only 2 candidates left. So the board would maybe discuss that and let us know.
I would be willing to discuss.
I
that.
agree.
So that's all I have. It's just wanted to kind of ask that question and hopefully some consideration.
Certainly.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Yeah. Do we want to discuss it now?
How would it look like? That's the only thing, is that we would have to kind of talk about procedural.
What some districts have done is to ask for example, the association to canvass its membership in terms of issues and items that they see as needed to be considered when the board is having the interviews.
Yeah.
And that's something that can be done fairly simply and fairly quickly, I think. And that might be something to do with the the instructional staff as well, as they're going to be represented.
I know a lot of our members completed the initial survey that was sent out by the board. So we did have a chance to give some.
Yeah. That's one of the things. That's one of the very frequent kinds of things that you see. Yeah.
Jason, have you researched any best practices from other districts potentially that you can share, or?
Nothing at the moment. When the time comes, I would certainly, request or ask to be on the committee, and I would do quite a bit of research in preparation for that. So.
What's the reasoning behind not having them involved till we have 2 people picked?
It's an excellent question. I'm going by the guidance of Mr. Bike.
Yeah.
So I don't know the rationale.
I mean, I would certainly be open to having them involved sooner.
Yeah, I just feel like when you have more people collaborating at an earlier stage, it could be
Absolutely.
beneficial. So.
I mean, as I see it, and I have a limited perspective, but I would say it's simply a logistic thing, right? As far as getting committees in there for the 5 rather than the 2, that we would just have to tweak the logistics of it.
I mean, we
I
already
don't
have
know.
the dates picked, so
We
they
do.
would have to be
Set.
whoever's
Yeah.
there would have
Yep.
would have to be available on those dates that we've already picked.
Right.
Yeah.
Jason,
Is
upon me like looking at this position and, running for board, I looked into what is the procedure. So I did look into the procedural pieces, and what Al proposed to us seems what they usually do, business as usual. So as far as our board following what Al is contending, it's truly just because he's our consultant.
And I think
So, yeah.
I think the other issue is one of confidentiality. The interviews for the 5 candidates are going to be held in an executive session, and the board members are bound by law and confidentiality. Someone who is not bound by that coming in does create a concern, because you don't have any control over what then leaves, and there's a lot of ground covered, a lot of questions asked, and that becomes a very serious concern for the consultants in terms of how all of a sudden now do they contain the whole confidentiality issue.
Right, no, that's understandable. What would be the, when you're down to 2 candidates, though, wouldn't you have that same issue?
Not really, because that's a discussion. What will happen with the committees is that there will be a meeting that anyone who's going to be on one of those committees, I think there are 5 committees that are being considered at this stage of the game. And all of those who volunteer or recommended to be on those committees will have to, if they want to be a part of the interview committee, are going to have to attend that meeting. And confidentiality is stressed there, but it's not the same legal issue that a board member has with confidentiality in an executive session. And those meetings are going to be held in a setting much like this, in a library where, you know, the community committee or the 5 or 6 or 7 or 8, however many people they decide to have on that would gather around. They would have their prepared questions. It would be formalized during that meeting. You would select a chairperson and a recorder. There'll be very specific parameters that will be set. And to the point where they advise you from a behavioral viewpoint to ask the questions in the same order of each candidate. It's easier to remember what the answers are. And then when you start comparing apples and oranges, you can have a better opportunity to kind of remember what people said. So there are a lot of things that are going to be occurring there, but it's going to be a much more open setting. And you'll also be given, honestly, a list of questions that you can't ask. Age, family, health, all kinds of different things.
Not too dissimilar to regular interviews we've done for.
Yeah.
I've been at some of those.
Yeah. Yep. But that's, I mean, those are the issues that you run into, and that would be the difference, is the whole notion of having an interview in an executive session and having it outside here where, you know, people can come and go. It's a different sort of possibility.
I wonder if some kind of document could be signed where people would have to swear to confidentiality, just trying to think outside the box. on that.
I mean,
Go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, you may want to check with Al.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, you know, we have him as our consultant. I think we can find out what we can do.
I'm sorry.
What do you guys
Oh,
think?
no, that's okay. The only thing I'm sensitive to is that we had 2 people apply from within our district. And I wouldn't want to do anything that would put them in an uncomfortable place and be in a position to compare themselves. And I think there's a lot of negative things that could come out of that. So that's just my thought from one perspective. And that would be the only issue I really see above and beyond what's already been said.
At any point, will the 5 candidates be revealed to the public?
Good question also.
That's a question for Al.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a question.
I know people are curious.
Yeah, no, that's a very reasonable question.
And it could be 3 people that go to committee. Yeah, it could be up to. Can we go on that?
I mean, it's good. That'll be, what we're discussing is the number of people's 2 or 3 or 4, however may come out of that. And that's going to be a decision that the board will make.
If the board can't narrow it down, then it goes to those
Right.
committees.
So it
as
could be potentially more than 2.
Potentially.
more
I
than-
mean, you know, and we're taking this extremely seriously.
Oh, I know. And I
Um,
appreciate you, entertaining everything. I've asked.
No, I mean, you know, so I think that when it says 2, I think that's our, hopes,
Hopeful.
high hopes,
Right.
but it could be more.
Yeah.
At this point.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
And I will get back to you. I'm gonna
Okay.
reach out
We
to
will,
Al and-
absolutely. Thank you,
Sounds good.
Jason.
Yep. Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else for public comment? Okay. This concludes public comment. All right, the board requests a brief executive session to discuss personnel matters. May I have a motion, please?
Motion.
Thank you. Discussion? Roll call?
Amy O'Brien.
Aye.
Mary Collins.
Aye.
Michael Vavra.
Aye.
Lynn Lockwood.
Aye.
And Christine Webb.
Hi.
Motion passed. It should be quite brief.
Field
Does it have to be unanimous vote or
Okay, 2.1 Superintendent's Report.
Okay, superintendent's report. Okay, the internal audit. Last meeting, you had a discussion about the internal audit, and essentially, Mark's gonna tell me whether I'm straying down the wrong trail or not, but I think what we talked about at the last meeting was the fact that there was no money budgeted for the internal audit. And that it wasn't budgeted for a couple of reasons. One is that small schools are now exempt from having to perform that. And as a consequence, given the economic climate at the time, was not put in the budget. So there's no money for it this year. It's about an $8,000 bill to do that every year. What you might want to do, and what Mark had suggested, I believe, as I recall, is that you look at every other year and targeting specific areas that you wanted an internal outside auditor to take a look at. And if you wait until next year to do that, then you're going to have your new superintendent here who, between he or she and Mark, are likely going to find some areas that they want to take a peek at. So my recommendation would be that you wait, do it next year, but make sure you budget for it this year.
I'm good with that.
when was the last one?
3 years ago.
I know it wouldn't have been last year, so
2
2 years ago.
2 years ago.
Yep. Are you okay with that, Mary?
Absolutely.
Christine?
Yeah.
Lynn? Good? Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
The summer letter is from Insero, and it's just, that's sort of the opening salvo over the bow, saying they're going to be here to do the audit this year, and giving Mark dates and times and letting him know when that's going to start. So it's a formality. Culvert collapse update. We did get that dug out. The water's flowing through it at this stage of the game. It's open at both ends. We're still working with insurance at this point in time to meet with the folks who own the other end of the culvert and make sure that that's going to be kept clear. It doesn't get plugged again. It was pretty well plugged before, and we want to make sure that doesn't happen again. So those meetings will hopefully take place next week. New teacher orientation date, it's going to be August 31st, and that is where we will bring in the new teachers, and we'll feed them some coffee and some goodies. They're sitting, some of them sitting back here tonight, I see. And we'll go through all the introductions of the cabinet, so they kind of have an idea of who's who in the zoo. And there's a variety of trainings that they will go through. We're going to give them a bus tour. The bus tour will be before lunch. Experience dictates that, or indicates that giving them a bus tour after lunch is not good planning. And then they will meet with their mentors and then go home. So that's the day on the 31st.
The bus tours of the district, like you're taking around and showing them.
Yep. You've got a road here, which I think is true. Monkey Run.
Takes that at 55.
That is, I wish I had that address. That is a great address. Monkey Run. Okay. Policy committee meeting. Mary and Chris are on the committee. We've got some things we really need to tend to. So when's a good time to meet? Mornings, afternoons, evenings? Hopefully not evenings.
I'll provide you my schedule link.
Okay.
I don't know, anything that we'll figure it out.
Is it?
I'm sorry.
How much time do we need? When do we need?
I was gonna say, didn't you mention somewhere about having it be prior to the regular board
And
meetings?
I
Is that an
think once we
option?
get in a groove, that would be good,
Okay.
but this first one is gonna be a low, I think. We've
Yeah.
got some things that have been hanging and probably need to be dealt with, so.
Right.
If we could do that, our mornings, afternoons, lunch,
I'm flexible, so I'll go.
how about you, Chris?
I'm flexible. That's next week. So if we want to look at it, we can make something happen. I'll just put it in.
I have no clue.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, you want to try mornings?
6:30?
Okay.
What?
I hear the
Sorry. We could be here forever trying to figure out.
Yeah,
your schedule.
let's do.
Shoot me sometimes. We'll do that.
I'll shoot
me-
you
me
sometimes.
Send a doodle, Christine.
I'll send a doodle.
Don't send a doodle. Transportation Committee reminder, we still need a person on transportation. I promise you it's going to be an exciting committee. Think it over. We have Oreos. It's good. It'll be fun. You'll enjoy it.
Mike,
Uh,
How far
can
out- how
can
far
we
out do you wanna
get,
do
can we
policy
get
committee?
you to volunteer for
How far out
transportation
do you wanna do
committee?
policy?
I bet
Can
it's
we twist
exciting.
your arm?
I can usually do
It
it.
sounds
They
really
do, that's
exciting.
I have pockets of time on, oh,
We'll jump back
all
on
right, we're
that.
going back.
Transportation, when do they meet and how many times? A year?
Yeah, I'd say maybe 4 times a year.
And when?
We'll talk about it, whatever's convenient.
It's his
They're
thinking
doing
face.
rock, paper,
Yay,
scissors,
thank
shoot.
you, Mike. Thank you. Thank you, Mike Vavra.
I second that.
All right, and the last thing I have on the superintendent's report are the shared administrative responsibilities. I'll pass those down.
Thank you.
All right, I'm done.
Thank you. Okay, 2.2, principals report.
Principals.
Evening, everybody.
Hello.
Hello.
For those of you who don't know, I'm Steve Tronovich, high school principal. I'll get this started here. Just want to provide some positive stuff that's going on in our buildings over the last month. First thing is summer school. For those who don't know, we're hosting the BOCES combined site for Chenango Forts and Chenango Valley right here in our high school. Had a couple hiccups in the beginning, worked that out, and now things are going swimmingly. In fact, we've had 15 students already complete the program due to the nature of it. It goes to August 10th, but if you work your tail off, you can get out sooner. So we're excited about those kids being able to do that. In total, we have roughly 160 kids that are showing up through the doors between 8 and 2 o'clock Monday through Thursday. And been working with our SROs, the MITS team, maintenance. All of us got this thing put together pretty quickly, and it seems to be going pretty well. So we're happy about that. Next is the art club with Keith Roscoe in conjunction with the PTO held a Devil's Drive-In movie night the other night, for those of you that aren't aware. It was awesome. We had over 100 people here of all varying ages. It was a double feature. We were down on that turf from I think 8 until midnight, and everybody had a blast. The art club is trying to raise some funds too for a New York City field trip that they're hoping to do in the spring. So they got some donations for that as well. They plan on doing it again on August 6th because of how well attended it was and the positive feedback that they got. So I was there with my daughter. We watched Moana and she's still raving about it. So we had a great time. So yeah, Keith Roscoe and Tina Hepler was part of the PTO that was there as well. So good stuff.
Great, thank you.
An update on middle school summer school program's going excellent. We have had no transportation issues brought to my attention to date, so that's a good thing. Our 3 teachers, we increased from 2 to 3 this year, and it's really working out better because we're able to put the kids in smaller groups and give them more focused attention. We're really covering skills for middle school. They're in groups 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Okay, and then we're doing core subjects. We're still utilizing our IXL math program that we have in the district for 6th through 12th grade. And then our Lexia program that we have in the middle school for ELA. So right now, 35 of 36 students are on track to earn their credit from the program. So that's good. We were hoping for 36 out of 36. We're still working on that one. We'll see what we can do tomorrow. And the other thing that we wanted to do is, pre-K through 12. So all 3 buildings, we just want to give a shout out to our maintenance and our IT staff. They are really working hard for our district this summer to get our school clean, ready, scraping all those dots and arrows and signs that were plastered everywhere in all of our buildings. Has been quite an effort to get up. And they're finding now that they have to do some extra scrubbing to get all the layers of wax from underneath those that didn't get worn down by the students' shoes and the staff shoes all school year. So we might still see some remnants of those, but we hope not. But anyway, they're doing a great job. And without them, we wouldn't be able to open our doors, in September. So we appreciate that.
Awesome. Thank you.
And then down at the elementary school, we had 3 summer enrichment camps run this year. We did 2 academic ones this year, which is a little different. So we did an ELA camp and a math camp. They were both half day and we ran during the same weeks, but some kids were there all day with us. It's a long day, but they did a really nice job. And then we had a character camp last week that ran just in the morning, and that was definitely the hit of all 3. The kids loved that. They did leadership activities, team building, all focused on character. We had our art teacher came in, our music teacher came in, a PE teacher came in. It was great. And then we're also running kindergarten orientation. It's back this year. We couldn't have it last year. So we did our first day today. So all 5 kindergarten teachers are welcoming half their class today, and then they welcome the other half tomorrow. And so the kids get to come in and get familiar with their teacher, the classroom, and then they also go to the cafeteria and ride the school bus. So it's really great this year because a lot of kids didn't come to pre-K last year due to COVID. So it's nice. Some of these kids have never been in our school. So it's been, today went great. And then also just an update on our summer professional development, pre-K through 12. So far, 126 teachers have attended some sort of pre-K, and there have been 36 different professional development opportunities so far. Most of them are in-house, and where teachers are analyzing data and getting ready for next school year. But then some teachers are also going to BT BOCES, and we even attended a couple leadership sessions last couple days, and they were wonderful. So
Great.
what's going on?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Good board report. The board doesn't have anything. All I have are emails, which was just one. I will read the email and leave out the sender on purpose. The way to safely reopen school for all students and staff is to mandate vaccination, all adult staff and eligible students, mask wearing, social distancing, increased ventilation, contact tracing. It is within our legal rights to protect our students and staff. This approach will save lives. That was an email received on the board contact this morning.
Yeah, I understand where the caller is coming from, but the mandating of vaccinations is going to be something that only the state could do. It's beyond our authority or purview. I did talk with the health department today, just checking in with them periodically to find out if they know anything more than we do about what the state might be thinking in terms of a reopening. And they don't know any more than we do at this point. In fact, she said, if you hear anything, please let us know. So they don't know really anything more than we do at this stage of the game. And my suspicion is that we will know something in the next very few days. But what we all need to keep our eye on, I think, is the Delta variant and what it's doing, the increases that we're being exposed to at this stage of the game, because I think that's going to, in the final analysis, drive the decisions that the state will make. And of course, we'll abide by whatever the state says we must do and the CDC says we must do.
Any other discussion for email? All right. 4.1. On recommendation of the superintendent, a motion to approve the following probationary appointments. Haley Van Auken, tenure area school counselor, date of commencement of service on probation, September 1, 2021. Date of end of probationary service, subject to education law, section 3012, August 31st, 2025. Certification status provisional, salary step 2, MA 54,693 per CFTA contract. Motion, please.
Motion.
Thank you, Mary.
Second.
Thank you, Lynn. Discussion. Roll call.
Amy O'Brien.
Aye.
Mary Collins.
Aye.
Michael Barbara.
Aye.
Lynn Lockwood.
Aye.
And Christine Webb.
Motion passed. Is Haley here? No. Welcome, Haley, if you are watching. 4.2. Upon recommendation of the superintendent, a motion to approve the following probationary appointments. Daniel Ford, tenure area special education general, date of commencement of service on probation, September 1, 2021. Date of end of probationary service, subject to education law, section 3012, August 31, 2024, previous tenure. Certification status initial, salary step 10, MA 61,127 per CFTA contract. I have a motion, please.
Motion.
Thank you, Mike.
Second.
Thank you, Lynn. Discussion? Roll call.
Amy O'Brien.
Aye.
Mary Collins.
Aye.
Michael Fabra.
Aye.
Lynn Lockwood.
Aye.
And Christine Webb.
Motion passed.
I didn't-
And,
I didn't say aye.
oh,
I have a
I'm
quick,
so sorry.
it's okay. Sorry, we roll called.
We did.
Initial, already tenured somewhere else. Why aren't they at a professional status?
I believe it was because the tenure did not take place.
Begin, okay. Previous, but it said previously tenured.
The vote occurred, but the first aid did not.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you. Aye.
Motion passed. Welcome, Nathaniel. Is it Nate or Nathaniel?
Nate would work, thank you.
Welcome, Nate.
Shorter. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. All right, 4.3. Resolved upon recommendation of the superintendent of schools that the Board of Education hereby renames the administrative position of Assistant Superintendent of Instruction to Assistant Superintendent. May I have a motion, please?
Motion.
Thank you, Lynn.
Second.
Thank you, Mary. Discussion. Roll call.
Amy O'Brien.
Aye.
Mary Collins.
Aye.
Michael Fabra.
Aye.
Lynn Lockwood.
Aye.
And Christine Webb.
Motion passed. 4.4. Resolved upon recommendation of the superintendent of schools that the following appointment be made from the preferred eligibility list for directors of curriculum. Lorraine Porby, Director of Curriculum, date of commencement of probationary service, August 28th, 2021. Date placed on preferred eligibility list, June 30th, 2018. Date of recall from preferred eligibility list, July 27, 2021. New tenure area, Assistant Superintendent of Schools. Expiration date of probationary period, August 27, 2025. Certification status, School District Leader Professional Certificate. Salary, $123,509 per the contract. Has received New York State mandated fingerprint clearance. May I have a motion, please.
Motion.
Thank you, Lynn.
Second.
Thank you, Mary. Discussion. Roll call.
Amy O'Brien.
Aye.
Mary Collins.
Aye.
Michael Fabra.
Aye.
Lynn Lockwood.
Aye.
And Christine Webb.
Motion passed. Welcome, Lori Corby. 4.5. What do we have? Oh, okay. So clerical support discussion for the clerical support for the assistant superintendent.
With each of the similar types of positions that were held in the district, I think the instruction, assistant superintendent for instruction, and then following that by a couple of years, the director of curriculum. Each of those came with a clerical support. This position, my understanding is there was no real discussion about the clerical support for this position. My concern is that without that support, the position is going to wind up being a very expensive secretary. Having to do the kinds of paperwork and the volume of documentation that is required in that particular position, it's voluminous. The other issue that I have sort of run into is the human resources here are somewhat scattered, and positions that are responsible for a small piece of human resources often don't understand what it is they're doing or why that's important in the larger picture. And the other problem I've had is just where you go to get any of that taken care of. It's several different locations, sometimes in different buildings. What I would like to do under the auspices of the assistant superintendent is to bring human resources together, to put a process together so that there is a beginning point when someone is hired new to carry it through. And then when someone leaves a position through retirement or resignation, that there be a position again where that process begins and how that ends. And there's a process for that. Perhaps a few fewer hands involved, but if they're gonna have to be many hands, we know where they are. So I'm seeing that happening. I'm also looking at the issue of cleaning up some of the filing that we've discovered needs to be done in the district office as well, some help with that. So there are a lot of things that I think can be brought under that particular clerical position to keep it very, very busy. And I do think it's warranted, and I would ask for the board's Quaker assent and approval to put a proposal together for that. The proposal would include a job description. It would include where the funding would be coming from, so that you have a clear picture when you vote on this of what it's about and how it's going to be paid for.
What was the other thing you said besides human resources? What was the other responsibility besides the?
The general filing for human resources.
Okay. So human resources isn't done in the business office now. We don't have a human resources person.
We don't have anything that's, and no one person is responsible. Everybody's got a lot of different pieces of it. And it's somewhat, it's fragmented. And the problem, I think, too, is that things get missed. The process that ought to include when someone leaves, there ought to be an exit interview. And there ought to be an exit interview with a specific individual who understands that position, that person's position. There are increasingly a number of things that the federal government requires that we talk to people about when they come in, insurance, health insurance, a lot of different things. And it's going to be easy for some of these things to get missed. The other area that concerns me is that when a position here is talked about being eliminated, it doesn't always get formally eliminated. And that's an issue as well. I think, as I indicated to you, the position of assistant superintendent was thought to have been eliminated 7 or 8 years ago. And we discovered that it never was formally. It was talked about and the individual left, but then the position, the final piece never got done. And I think that's a large part of that is just because there is no particular process, there's no checklist, there's nobody watching the whole thing. And I think that needs to be done, particularly when you're dealing with some of the civil service positions, to do those the right way. That, and that could be very complicated. It would be good to have somebody on site who understands that. Now, Chris understands it probably more than he would like to, but Chris isn't always here either. And it would be good to have somebody on hand that can speak the same language that he speaks, because I don't always understand his language. So those are.
So what you're looking for from us is the okay to move forward with putting together a job description
Mhm.
and
A job-
funding source.
Yep.
A proposal.
Yep, so if I come to you and I ask, I give you a recommendation for the position, that you'll have your questions answered and understand it, know what it's all about.
I'm okay with that.
Yep.
Yes, yes,
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
thank you. Was that a yes?
That was a
Okay, just make
yes.
sure I got
Yes.
everybody. Okay, 4.6, transportation position discussion.
Yeah, civil service, in my view, is not playing nice right at the moment. And as a consequence, we're a little at a stymie in terms of the list. They have a list that they put together, or they will be putting together. The process that they have is that they give a test, you take the test. It takes weeks for the thing to be scored. And then once it's scored, it takes another several weeks for a list to be put together. In the meantime, we have been told we must hire from that list, but there is no list at this point. By the time there is a list, we're thinking maybe mid-September, Chris? Optimistically mid-September. That's the list. At this stage of the game, we know who took the test. They've been canvassed. There's only one person that's interested in the position, which leaves us in the position of not having a choice. And that concerns me. The other concern I've got is that the supervisor of transportation is not going to be dealing with the drivers, the personnel. They're going to be there are a lot of things they are going to be doing. They're going to be relatively busy, but I think they could take on some more. And given the right person, the other issue that has been identified is that when Bernie leaves, the only district individual who understands the door system, the fob system, the camera system is going out the door. We are going to be dependent upon a contractual 10-month positions to run all that stuff, to do those things for us. I think it would behoove the district to have somebody on site who can do all of those things in addition to I'm not saying that we should take that away from the SROs necessarily, but there needs to be somebody that is on the payroll of the district and is looking out for our interests, not just a contracted organization. I'm also concerned about the safety plan and the seriousness in which that has been shepherded for a while. And I'd like to see somebody have the responsibility for that as part of a job, not as a stipend. So again, what I'm looking for is to put a proposal together and include all of those various things. And Chris understands my frustration. He keeps pulling me down from the ceiling. I tend to go on rants. And he's very good about listening to it.
Both Chris's are smiling, so which Chris are we talking about?
Both of them. Yeah.
So for our new member, excuse me just one moment, Christine Webb, we have Chris Wilkinson and Chris Corlett.
Yeah.
And labor relations and
Labor
labor
Yeah.
relations, okay, labor relations and labor relations.
And then John Edwards. And when I was talking with him, sending him emails, all of a sudden it dawned on me that I was talking to Chris and Edwards. And it sounded like a law firm.
We should do that.
So I'm again looking for Quaker assent. It's okay to go ahead and put ideas together, proposals together, and get them sent out to you probably before the next board meeting, so you have some time to chew on those things and formulate your questions and whatnot. The other thing I'm really concerned about is opening school without somebody in that chair. I don't know how long we're going to be able to hang on to Bernie. He's retired. And he is only allowed by New York State to make a certain amount of money. And when that's done, it's done. I would never ask somebody to jeopardize their retirement for that. And I don't know how long into the fall that's going to take us. So I'd like to move, I want to move quickly, but there's just been so much going on. It's hard to get everything done as fast as I'd like to get it done.
So you're proposing with this new, it's not gonna be a director of transportation position, it's gonna be a non-civil service position?
Well, it's probably going to be civil service, but the question is there a title? What you have to do is you have to write your description of what you want done and then send it to civil service, and they'll tell you again whether you can or can't, and if so, what the title is going to be. So I'd like to get that done sooner rather than later so that we know what we're doing and figure something out for the fall for transportation.
Do other schools have that job description that you can look at? Does Al have job descriptions that you can look at to help guide you?
They don't have anything quite like that, we don't think, in Broome County. Now, Chris Wilkinson is looking at some of the other counties surrounding just to see if there's anything that kind of matches up with the profile that I've described.
Yeah, I mean, just districts that don't, just directors of transportation can have all sorts of things. There's one guy who does IT and transportation, another person that is athletic director and transportation. So, and some don't even have directors of transportation, they're route coordinators, or they have head bus drivers kind of run the transportation department. So there's lots of different options out there. But with the turnaround right now, from what civil service told me to get the test back, I think it'd actually be quicker for us to create a new position with some expanded responsibilities from what we initially sent them in the new position duty statement that they came back and said that was director of transportation.
Oxford had a director of transportation and middle school principal for 7 years. You're looking at him. So I wouldn't push that on anybody.
Thanks, Brad.
Just throwing it out there now.
So do we give our blessing?
Yes.
Yep. Yep.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Mike? Yes, thank you. 4.7. On recommendation, the superintendent of schools that the Board of Education hereby creates the position of elementary school counselor to perform the job duties as outlined in the attached job duties description statement. Make a motion, please.
Motion.
Thank you, Lynn.
Good.
Thank you, Mary. Discussion? Roll call.
Amy O'Brien.
Aye.
Mary Collins.
Aye.
Michael Fabra.
Aye.
Lynn Lockwood.
Aye.
And Christine Webb.
Motion passed. 4.8, upon recommendation of the superintendent, a motion to add or remove the attached as substitutes for the district. Make a motion, please.
Motion.
Thank you, Lynn.
Second.
Thank you, Mike. Discussion? Roll call.
Amy O'Brien.
Aye.
Mary Collins.
Aye.
Michael Fabra.
Aye.
Lynn Lockwood.
Aye.
Christine Webb.
Aye.
Motion passed. Okay, 5.1, student and family support discussion.
All right, in your board docs, you'll see some documents. I may have had a chance to look them over. If you haven't, I'd encourage you to. The first one is our documents that have been put together by the cabinet. And they consist of the philosophical statement of support for students and families. And there's also an indication there of some of the things that the principals would be looking in the future to try and bolster. And then there is the Chenango Forks Central School District Student and Parent Guardian Resources. And I really would like to have you take a look at that. I have to say, as someone coming in from the outside, I've been very impressed with what the school district is offering in terms of support for its kids. You've got some things that I've not seen in other places, or if I have, I've seen a few, but not all. And you've got a good support system for your kids, and you should be proud of what you've accomplished to this point. Having said that, we also know that there are things that we could do differently or better. And Amy Humphrey is here to talk about one of those possibilities, the Liberty Partnership Program. And I've had some secondhand experience with it. I was never able to get it in Oxford because by the time Oxford jumped, it wasn't available any longer in our particular area. They were pretty much maxed out, but the schools that did have it have been very, very pleased with the support that it's offered its youngsters. So Amy?
Yes. So Maggie Dorsey?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I went to college with her. So, I mean, I can talk forever. So I think the best way to approach it is kind of give you a general overview. I think the history of Liberty is really important. And then kind of a look at what we can do in the district and then just answer questions and have a conversation that's more my speed.
Sure.
Liberty's been around since 1988. So it's got longevity, it's got teeth, right? Like it's been really successful in school districts. We're currently in Susquehanna Valley, which has been there since the beginning. We're at Binghamton, they've been there since the beginning, and this year we're actually expanding there. So we're going from 2 counselors. One of them is a licensed social worker, the other, and they're both being promoted, and we're hiring four full-time counselors in that district. We're at Johnson City, they bought into the program, this is their 2nd year. So we have 1 full-time counselor at the high school, and we're hiring 1 full-time counselor at the middle school. So that's kind of the scope right now of where we're at. There are 46 projects across New York State in our region, and all the projects are connected to higher education. So within the Southern Tier region, there is Binghamton University and Morrisville. So we're fully funded to serve, we're the only 2 in our region. We're fully funded the Binghamton University program to serve the districts we talked about, which is 420 students. That keeps increasing. From what I've heard, we're going to be getting another budget increase, which have kind of already, we've been talking budgets for like 2 years straight, right? I think we're still closing up 2019-20 like you guys are. The state has been a mess. We are New York State funded. And we're unique to New York State. So, you know, the only programs are here. So how it works is we really we can work from anywhere from 5th to 12th grade. Typically, if I have a person in a high school, which is I think what we're talking about here, because I would never have just a middle school person, because then where would your students go when they got to high school? So we would have a full-time counselor embedded in your high school who would work with a cohort of about 60 students. That person is a professional in your district. It's really important that you guys are on board, right? The only way Liberty works is if everyone wants it there. So that person is a professional in your school who is a complement to your counselors, to your social workers, to your teachers, to your administrative staff. They are there to support those students. And that's in a very comprehensive way. We kind of approach it as a case management model. So I'll kind of give you a look, like each student that comes into the program, and we're very particular about that process, just as I am about who we hire. Those two things make it really important for Liberty to be successful. So when students are referred, we go through a process of trying to see, are they ready for Liberty? Is there like an ounce of interest in like being a part of a group like Liberty? And we take them through a process of referral. Every student coming in, if the funds are there, does a social emotional assessment. I don't think we'd be looking at that with Forks, but they sit down with a counselor and do a personal learning plan. Like, what are your goals? What are your current SMART goals? Not the big like end game goals, but what are some small things we could start tackling and working on? And that learning plan will follow them throughout the course of the high school. My counselors do everything from social emotional workshops, meeting with them, talking to them about anger regulation. What is that? Is that really anger? Is that something else going on underneath? Helping them to identify emotions, helping them process emotions. They're there to help students learn how to communicate better. So if a student is struggling in class, a teacher would call, ideally, right? A teacher would call the Liberty person they go in school to and say, oh, thank gosh, Jack has Liberty. Let me bring the Liberty person on board. And my Liberty counselor would work with that student and the teacher to figure out a plan so how they can be successful. Sometimes that means a student has to leave class to go to Liberty. Our goal is not to do that. I just share that up front because that's one thing that teachers ask. And that's a whole other discussion, but so they work with that and eventually they work with the students to teach them to be self-advocates so they don't have to intervene there. If we have students that have an IEP or a 504, the Liberty counselor person is really someone who should be at the table for those discussions. How it works in other schools, if a student say has a behavioral referral and they're having lots of trouble, my counselors are on the speed dial with superintendent, quite frankly. Like they know their students really well. So if something happens again and you go into school to and they say, oh, they have a Liberty counselor, that person's brought into a superintendent hearing or it's brought in to have those discussions. Our principals will often call our Liberty person in first to kind of get some background or some information on what's going on with the student they're working with before they make decisions and how they're going to proceed if the student's having problems. In terms of attendance, it's really comprehensive, right? Some kids are missing school because they're working second shift to take care of their brothers and sisters, or some kids are missing school because they don't have an alarm clock. Like it could be a broad range of things and we've worked to try to figure that out. Attendance is never just a kid not coming to school. There's always an underlying issue. So it's very broad. So that's a social emotional piece, like really quick. But we also do leadership development. So we encourage civic engagement. We really don't, I hate the term at risk. We have to use it for like grant writing, but we don't use it in the school. Like we don't talk about the students as students who have trouble or students who are having problems. We talk about Liberty as an opportunity program. Like this is an opportunity for you to get involved. If you're disconnected, you're not involved in other things maybe, right? It's an opportunity to do better. It's an opportunity to go on college tours, to start looking at different things that you want to get involved in. We really kind of build kids up. So like the more you volunteer or the more civic engagement you do, we have like hoodies, right? So like, oh, you've earned a hoodie, and then kids covet that and they want one of those. It becomes just this tight-knit family. It becomes a place for where a lot of kids don't have something. This is a heavy sports school. I've always thought that there needed to be something. My kids are heavy sports, but I've always thought there should be something here for kids who don't have a connection to something. So we do focus on college. Obviously, my team knows a lot. We are support for your guidance counselors, right? Like they already do a good job at that, but we also do that with our students. So we have a whole like graph of summer melt. So we follow our seniors, especially for a year, but prior to that, we're like establishing hope for college, you know, thinking about college. Some kids are first generation and haven't gone. So we have those conversations and we have plans in place from 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th of what we do to kind of get them thinking about post-secondary education or the workforce or trade, or we have a lot of kids that go into the service, but we work with them and we kind of work with them to get them to their goals. Our summer melt is like, you have seniors who say they're going to college in the fall, but something happens and they fall off their plans. So we have really like rigid dates, like, have you checked with them in May? Have you talked to them? What schools have they looked at? Have they signed a letter, you know, or where are they at in that process? So we really stay on top of our seniors. We help them a lot with financial aid, different discussions about that. I often look for a person coming in to have more of the social emotional background. So that stuff with the college prep, they learn as they go. They learn it from my team. My team at Binghamton is exceptional. Like I put them up with anyone. Nick Mattias is my counselor there. He's the board of the Johnson City District, but they just know their stuff. And so we'll do a full training with them and get them up to speed. We do a comprehensive full 5 to 6 week summer program. You could look at our Facebook page. Honestly, if you want to get the most information about Liberty, just go to Binghamton University Liberty Partnerships, and you'll see kind of the really great work that my team is doing, especially this time of year when they post a lot, because they're all over the place.
Questions?
Questions. There's a lot more to it, but honestly, like, I mean, the most important thing about Liberty is it's about connections. It's about building a trusting relationship with students, and we're not a 9 to 5. Like when it ends in the summer, we're with the kids. When it ends at the end of a school day, we get calls at 2 a.m. You know, like my counselor is like, they just become a trusted adult mentor to students here. And I can't emphasize enough, like I brag, like I'm the chair of the New York State projects, and my program has ranked like top 3 consistently. Like we're just a good, solid program. We run well, we have a systemic way of doing it. Like it's just a well-run program, but it takes a lot of work and it takes a lot of commitment from a district to have us in there. So I'm kind of here asking questions of you too, because I wouldn't want to see something like, okay, we have stimulus funds for a year and then put in the work to kind of build a position that there isn't a focus for how you're going to sustain it. So I'm kind of like asking questions of you too, because we are established, we are building in all the districts, and I really want to be here. I think Forks needs us. So.
Questions? Christine, you're stewing over there.
No, I'm not stewing.
Well, maybe not stewing, but you're
Thinking.
I have a lot of questions.
Yeah,
We had the
throw 'em out.
community school partnership that didn't work in our district, and,
Mhm.
and I know that Binghamton University also hosts that. What makes this different, the communication, the onboarding, the working with our principals and staff and maintaining this relationship, you know, because there's some shady spots that these
Oh,
are
yeah.
district things that, you know, this teacher should be and the guidance should be, and where does one end and one begin? And onboarding this person into our district.
Mhm. Those are great questions, and I'll steer away from why I think community schools fails. I mean, we're both under
The same umbrella.
Laura Bronstein, the dean, right?
Right,
So
right,
we
right.
kind of fall under that category. So I'll steer away from that, but Liberty, I think, is a lot different. Liberty has sustained in districts where Promise Zone Community Schools has been moved out, and I think that's for a really good reason. And I think that's because my team knows schools. They live in the district. I really try to hire people who know your district. I take a lot of care in the hiring process. So I kind of want to find someone that fits your culture, right? I want to find someone who has the background. The other thing that we do, and I insist on, is when a person starts, we would all sit down together, right? Like we would sit down with guidance. We would sit down with whatever teachers you wanted at the table. We would sit down with your social workers. your principals, and we would just talk about, we're a compliment to what you do. We're here to support what you do. We love your students. Like, we're here with the same thoughts in mind that you have. And we're there to work as a part of a team. We shouldn't come in and be in an island. And so it becomes really important that you guys want and see the need for additional support. Because it's a two-way street, right? Like, onboarding would be all of us coming together and collaborating and talking about how we make this dynamic work well.
How do you maintain your like deliverables? I'm gonna assume you have grant deliverables. How do we?
I mean, that would be one thing I would have to have. Each school sets up where we have to have access to our students' data to be able to track. New York State, this wouldn't be a state funded position, so it would run how the district wants to run it, but I try to maintain any of my schools that come on board. I try to run it the same way I run it for New York State Department of Education. So our only main deliverable with New York State Ed is graduation rate, and that we maintain a certain number of schools. However, we collect attendance, we collect behavioral referrals, we monitor grades every 5 weeks. Every marking period, we kind of track how they're doing. If a student's dipping below, we look at what we're doing. We have, I think there's like 12 to 15 interventions that we provide. And so my team is trained to, how do you identify which intervention you were working on when that student was in your office? So then I can go back as a director and look at, okay, if I have a kid who's at a 65, but we saw him for 30 hours in a month, what were we focused on with him? And so we're really data rich, and we're constantly monitoring progress. Sometimes sometimes data doesn't tell the whole story, right? Sometimes you might have a student at 64 and they're like, what are you doing? We're like, well, he was at a 22. So it looks different for every student. For us, progress is, how's that student feeling? Are they coming to school? You know, how has their attendance been? Are they feeling connected? When we talk to them, do they feel a sense of worth? Do they have a sense of hope for the future? What are their grades look like? Are they connecting with their teachers? We kind of have a process for getting all that information. Does that kind of answer your question?
Kind of, when you were working with educators, like how would you be? A lot of it's anecdotal. And you would have to have the educators along with you to, how did like connect with it? How are they feeling about their teachers? How are they feeling? You know, you're getting a snapshot. So would you have team meetings with?
Well, yeah, I mean, the counselor coming into school, I don't know what structure you have in place. I don't know if you have at-risk team meetings. I don't know if you have, I don't know if you have like mod meetings, like some schools have, like there's a 6th grade group or there's an 8th grade group. Every school is different for how you as adults, professionals in the school connect, but my Liberty person in every district that I'm in is part of that. So they're at the table. They're at the table for those meetings. As far as teachers go, I think that's the most critical piece up front, is to help teachers understand that we are there to be a support. So that's communication. I don't hire people who are not good communicators. I mean, that's the goal. You hire someone who's collaborative, who understands the nature of collaborative work, who understands kids, who understands meeting student needs, often means working with the professionals in that building to help work together to get them to the end game, right? Teachers need support.
Do the administrators have questions? Because I think I can learn a lot from you and your questions that you ask her.
Honestly, I'll speak to that just because I'm in high school. I've talked with Amy at length about this, and it checks a lot of boxes that we feel are needs at the high school, especially even just building a partnership with an organization like Binghamton University and having that in our school, and talking about integrating that and making sure that it's not an us and them, it's just an us, right? We're bringing them on and making sure they're part of our PPS teams. And I'm already looking at possible places to put this counselor, and it's going to be pretty darn close to the guidance office. So that way there's a constant collaboration with everyone in this district, and trying to support the students and what they need. So I don't really have any questions. I feel like it's something that that we would benefit from as a district, and especially at the high school level. To touch on as well, we had talked about bridging a gap with the middle school and making sure that there's the 8th graders, so that way they feel supported coming into the high school too. So we are hoping that that would be part of this process. So that way you kind of have students that we're already building those connections with, so when they get in the high school, they continue all the way through graduation as well.
I think if I'm reading into it correctly, I think I understand some of your concerns, and if I'm off base, you can tell me.
No.
I think community schools is more of a concept, right? Like they have, community schools was always intended to be that they go into a district, they help a district identify what their greatest needs are. And then they work to build resources and wrap those resources around a school. That's what they're intended to do. What often happens when they come in and they scramble to find footing, they start trying to like develop programs, right? We're a program, we're a well-established program. We've been doing it since 1988. Like we have processes in place, how to bring a student on board. How do we onboard them? How do we onboard with a district? How do we separate a student? We have a whole process for if a student has to terminate. Our program is really unique in the fact that there is no reason a student should leaves our program. Like we're very careful, like once they're with us, regardless of how it looks, they're with us until they graduate. They're with us if they're didn't graduate and they stay another year, like they stay on board. I remember a perfect example when I first started. I've been a director for 11 years. I had a student at Binghamton show up with a gun. And I said, oh my gosh, like there has to be consequences. Like he can't be in our program. Like, what are the consequences? What kind of play is at place? And my counselor looked at me and she's like, everybody in his life has kicked him out. You know, why do you think he's carrying a gun? Like we can't have him kicked out of the program. We have to work with him. So that's kind of where I just think we're unique that way. Like we are just a steadfast support to kids who really need it. And I have seen them here. There's kids here that need support.
So you said the program can focus on 5th through 12th grade?
It can.
Okay, and you would usually house the counselor in the high school so that there's someone at the end?
No, I mean, when I first started, the director before me, she had a person say at a high school and then spread them out and they went from the high school to the middle school. In my opinion, that doesn't work. And I pulled back from that model. So I have a dedicated full-time person at the high school. Because if you pull that person out to go to the middle school too often or to go to 5th grade, the high school students that need them, they go in like, where's my counselor? You know, they need to be there full-time. They're in the school with you. We can do transition programming. So by transition, I would have the high school counselor work, maybe they do 2 lunch blocks, right? Maybe we develop a cohort of 8th grade students who need a little extra support. And we provide kind of like lunch groups with them. And then we do an intensive transition program before they come to the high school and we work with them in that capacity. But in my experience, it doesn't work to split somebody's time. It's just not effective. That would be if you wanted a full-time high school person and a full-time middle school person, then you could have a full trajectory of 5th through 12th. But not just with one person.
So you need 2 people.
You would need 2 people.
Even though us being unique, connected here by a corridor.
Yes.
You still think that's too much?
Yep. I witnessed that with Tracy at SV. She's my counselor. She's been there for 20 years. And as good as she is, and as well as she knows the school, when she's out of the office, her Liberty students are like lost. Like, where is Tracy? I mean, it just becomes like their connection to the school. So it's no good to have that person out of there.
So it'd be 6-12 then, right? Because 5th is elementary school.
It would be high school.
Oh, I thought you
talking
said 5-12.
She's talking to start, we're gonna have one person. and then
I
we
mean, it's
focus on
whatever
high
the
school.
district wants.
And then we can expand
What's on the
to
table
another
is a
person.
full-time position at the high school.
for the middle school.
I understand, and then we could expand to a second position that would reside in the middle school.
Correct.
But how does that bring in the 5th grade?
The 5th grade, we can serve 5th through 12th. So like I don't mean to bring up other districts. I just had this conversation with Johnson City. So at Johnson City, I'm hiring a full-time middle school person. I already have a full-time high school. So that full-time middle school person will work with the same cohort as the high school counselor is, but they're gonna do a 5th grade transition.
Okay.
So he's gonna work and do lunch groups with 5th grade kids. And then provide like summer transition, beginning of school transition. And once that person is kind of built up team leaders, Because that's the other piece of the high school, right? Like you work with students and then they become peer mentors and leaders. Eventually, it kind of works down that your high school mentor leaders start mentoring your middle school students, who then mentor your 5th grade students. Do you see what I mean? That takes time to build. That's more like a 3-5 year, build, but, and then your middle school person is doing the 5th grade, your high school person is doing the 8th grade, and then they kind of work together, but that's how the transition piece works.
Got it. Thank you.
So I'm confused about the funding, because you mentioned that you're fully funded by the state, but you mentioned the stimulus money.
We are fully funded from the state for where we're at already. So any new schools coming in, it's a buy-in to the program. So I have put together budgets for principals and superintendents that says this is the bare bones what it costs me to run a program in your district, which is 70,000. Used to be 65. I had to increase it 5 because I've been working really hard to increase salaries. I have counselors we had a student working at Core Life that was making more than my starting counselors, which I just was no good. So I have worked for the past year to really increase salaries to a way because I don't want turnover. It takes a good year to establish a program in a school. So turnover is like the devil in my world. Especially with kids, because the kids we're working with have trust issues often. So it takes them a while to really build trust and to get to know that person.
Yeah, that's included in the documents in the.
Have the principals spoken to Johnson City, Binghamton, Susquehanna Valley, any of these other districts to kind of see how they work?
I specifically talked with Dave Daniels when he was here. He was a big proponent of this. He said it was the best thing he did throughout his whole time at SV. And then I talked to the new principal there, Sadell Stewart. And she only had great things to say about the program, and she's been a teacher there and has worked closely with the counselor there as a member there, and says that she's fully supportive of continuing it there at SV.
SV is a lot like Forks in terms of I know you have a lot of internal built-in supports for students, but Liberty is the only community support program they have, which I think we would be the only community support program you have, other than you have great internal stuff built, but we'd be the only thing and we'd be a complement to that. And it's been really successful at SV. I think this project here would mirror that a little bit, just because of the size of the school and how the students interact with them.
Have you been unsuccessful in any school districts before and had to pull out?
Not unsuccessful. I wouldn't use that phrase. So I've made a lot of strategic decisions as a director. So when I started, we were in Windsor, and I love Windsor. I hated to leave Windsor. I could get the easiest data. Everything was so good there. It was very easy, but they didn't need us. Jason wasn't happy with that decision, but I opted to pull out of Windsor and double down at Binghamton because our needs at Binghamton were just so great. So I pulled out of Windsor. Owego pulled out during pandemic because of space and money. And I think Owego is a very insular school. They are just, we were very successful there, but I think they just wanted to go at, I can't read their minds. They pulled out because they told me because of money and for space. I have my other instincts of why. And just recently, we're moving out of Endicott at their choice. Endicott has been, I think the schools that don't work, that don't last with Liberty are schools that look at Liberty as more of a club or a study hall. And so at Endicott, I was going to be on my 4th counselor in 5 years. And I said, this isn't working. We have to have a conversation. I said, all my 3 counselors have asked to leave your district. So we need to kind of sit down and talk about that. And when we sat down and talked about that, we just couldn't really come to an agreement. Their philosophy is, as anyone, which is a kid in a seat, which is important, but there's also has to be this understanding of kids are going through a lot. And if they're not in a seat, sometimes it's for a reason. And there wasn't just this general respect of I've had this conversation with principals, right? And it's just this trust and understanding, if I'm in your school and I have a counselor in your school and you see a student in there who's supposed to be in class, there just has to be this mutual professional respect that says something must be going on, because my Liberty counselor would never just take a kid out of class or keep them from class unless there was something really necessary, because our goal is to have them in the seat in class. We could push into a class if like we have like 3 students in there and a teacher's struggling, like that's a way we could help. We could push in and kind of help, but it's just this mutual professional respect of a complete compliment and support to what you're doing. And you're asking great questions. I love them. This is how you get to the heart of it, right?
You all know where I stand with social, emotional well-being and health. So I would be all for this if we can swing it. Mark,
Yep, we have the funds that were to be used for BU's community
Mhm.
program that were already budgeted.
Mhm.
We use in turn for this.
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
But the difference between community schools and the Liberty program is that we're losing the K-5, the pre-K-5 piece. I know we just got a counselor for the pre-K-5, so I understand that is the seat being filled, I'm assuming, Hannah?
Yeah, so I think the big difference is that Liberty is gonna directly support students, individuals.
Yeah, but it's gonna be high school. We lost
Right.
community schools with elementary base.
So the elementary school counselor will fill that need.
That we
need
just-
someone else to help individual students and individual families fill those needs, and a counselor at the elementary will fill that need.
I would challenge long-term how much of an impact they were having. So I wouldn't say like year 1 or 2, we'd be at this point, but I say year 2 or 3, there could be a partnership with elementary in terms of our standout students, right? Like I can't have a full roster. Like
No,
that's a
yeah,
whole
no.
other discussion, right? So when you have, like, we have students, I've never seen a student who doesn't qualify for Liberty, but there is like, criteria we follow by the state for who is eligible. But if you have a student in there, for instance, that maybe was a high flyer, and then their parents got divorced, and you guys started to notice like behavior slipping and that kid was falling through the crack, they could be a Liberty student just as much as students who are really struggling. And what I have found is leaders emerge. And so students who start doing really well and work with that counselor become mentors. And then in a lot of our districts, like we go and do a haunted house, or we go and do read with elementary schools. So they become your peer leaders at the high school, but that takes growth. Like that's not going to happen right away.
When do you need commitment by?
Yesterday. I'm hiring right now. I just filled 4 positions. And I've asked them to extend the post in case you chose to come on board. I think this is, if you guys decide to move forward with it, it'd be a group effort from all of you. As much as I'm a parent in this district, both of my kids are here, but I'm not well connected, I don't feel like, in terms of finding the right person. Like the people I have that I'm hiring are excellent, but we scouted them. Like we scouted them specifically for the schools that they're in, and I think that's really important. So I would be open to you guys referring people to me that you thought might be a good fit. I really look for longevity. Like teachers aren't a great fit because they use Liberty a lot as just a stepping stone so they can get into a teaching position. I really look for people who are just passionate. Maybe they have a bachelor's in human development or a bachelor's in social work. They tend to be really good. Who love your community or connected to it or interested in moving into this community. And are good with kids, obviously. And then have like a sense about them in terms of the way they communicate. I'm good at like hiring. My team I don't have any turnover. I'm good at the hiring process if people send me good people. I'm interviewing 1 girl tomorrow. On paper, I'm not impressed, but she may surprise me. And so my next focus would be, if you decide to move forward, would do a hard press to find somebody. I did have my eye on the oldest. I don't even know him, so I shouldn't even say that loud. The oldest Argento is going to school for social work. And he was a name here, right? So that's kind of like an interesting caveat. But anyways, that's all aside. So yes, I would need to know, like, if I want to start someone 9/1, I have to do a full affirmative action post, which takes about 3 to 4 weeks. Yeah, so I'm in that process right now. So if Forks wanted to get on board, it would like, we'd have to get on board and
Yeah,
go.
pretty quick.
I'm a yes.
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 I'm gonna say no. It doesn't matter.
It matters. It just doesn't swing the vote, but it matters.
It matters.
Yeah.
And again, just because I just don't know. I just don't know the difference between,
I think you have a bad taste in your mouth from whatever you all just experienced. I mean, I sense that. I can't say a lot.
no,
With-
and I'm not
without
asking,
coming
no,
up-
and I'm not asking for that, but what stops us from investing $70,000 into a counselor, our own counselor for the high school, another counselor with similar goals? I mean, isn't that what our guidance counselors are supposed to be doing anyway?
The niche
I'm
that-
concerned that this is a niche that's missing and that we need to have somebody outside personally. I find it heartbreaking that we have to look for an outside entity to support these students. That this is
Anymore,
not what we're doing anyway, that this isn't our best practice.
anymore, like schools are community schools, like you can't do it all, but your guidance counselors can't do it all by
Right,
themselves.
but if we're investing 70,000 in you, which I feel very badly.
No,
I don't
no,
know
you're not-
you.
you're not
I feel, I don't, yeah,
you're not
I've never met
offending
you
me.
before and I, and what I've read was lovely.
You're
But
not offending
what's
me.
stopping from investing getting another line as another counselor that this is their objective? I mean, what's the difference? Like,
Because they don't take them on college tours. They don't
no, I
take
know,
their
like,
phone
I'm
calls
like
at 2:00 in the
the
morning.
liberty
They
piece.
don't, because the kids see them in a different light. I can't explain it to you, see it, like they see a counselor in a different light than they see a Liberty counselor.
Because I think we need it 100,000%. I mean, Amy, that's not what I'm
Yep.
arguing about.
Right.
Because I absolutely with 100% agree, but we're looking at an outside entity.
You're not convinced of the value of
That-
that as opposed to.
And I
bringing in-
want to, I feel badly because I think, and I think it was last time that we were in the meeting, I was complaining we don't have enough community partners and I absolutely love Binghamton University. So it's not an issue. I work with them very well. So I like that piece, but I feel like I'm torn.
I think part of what they offer is a several years of experience and
And the
and a
1988
program- and a-
thing
and a-
works for me.
and a program that works. And to hire a counselor, you're going to be hiring someone who's trained in counseling.
Differently.
And I don't think that the approach is going to be the same. It's not going to be something that they're used to. They're not going to have a picture in their mind of what this thing ought to look like or accomplish. And it's also 12 months and our counselors are only.
And then
11.
Amy too, I'm curious, when you vet them, if we hire for 9/1, how much training do they get with you?
When I vet them, I make sure I'm hiring someone who who can get up and get running. Like, I'm really particular in the hiring process, and I would bring whoever wanted to interview from here could be part of this. I usually bring like my top candidates and the school picks, like, I bring who I'm comfortable with and know who will do a good job, but in terms of training, I do a couple day onboarding with them, but I'm hiring, I'm hiring them to know what they're doing. Liberty isn't like, when I started Liberty, I was given a calendar and a really long enclosed, you'll find the landscape of the, this really long thing. And I flipped through and all said, contact schools, report due. Because it's the Liberty position's just unique to you.
See,
So
and
they
that's
have-
where I'm opposite, because I want to see your data.
You
I
can see
want,
my
I-
data.
I wish that would
We
have been
give reports-
presented with this.
Oh,
you know,
we give
like,
reports regularly, but we talked about, do you want reports from another district? I don't have data here to give you yet, but. I mean,
no,
we have
like,
a
I'd
a
love to see a
95%
longevity study. Like, you
Mhm.
talked about Susquehanna Valley having it for 20 years.
Mhm.
Like, to me, that's, and again, it's not a, I
don't
feel
have
like
to-
that
I've
it's not
never
even a
had-
hard no, it's just.
I've never had $10,000 or plus to do an extensive research study on my
Right,
project.
right.
Like, I give the superintendents and principals regular reports, whatever they ask for. Binghamton loves it. She put slides up, everything is Liberty because her data is so good. It's just good data.
And I think it's just me not understanding the whole scope. So I look forward.
I understand, and I.
Well, no, and I
agree.
do. I look forward, I think it was
I appreciate it.
So I mean, I look forward to seeing the success in 100%. I think that's something that I look forward to hearing from the principals' reports in the future as well. So.
On a complete different note, the involvement with BU is that you're as much as you want or as little as you want. The person that comes in here is a Forks. You know, they're a Forks Liberty counselor. We provide MAT tutors. I have a partnership with I'm under TLEL, Teaching, Learning, and Educational Leadership. So we work with them every year. We help them with placements, and then we provide MAT students as tutors in the school. That's an option too, if you want it. They're always desperate for that. I have my close friend runs the Center for Civic Engagement, and they've been looking for ins to schools in terms of opportunities for their Binghamton University students. Most schools, because of COVID and or otherwise, in terms of Binghamton University students being like, they're not consistent, right? You have them for a semester, you have them for a year. So that's an option. Like, I have connections at Binghamton University I can bring into play, but it's not like
No,
what I'm
and I,
pitching.
well, no, and I like that piece of it.
Mhm.
Is that something that could be K-12 or is that still only at the high school?
It could. I mean, I know Kelly is the director over there, and they're constantly looking for ways to get their university students connected into the districts.
Because that was something that the community school brought in that was very positive, was
Mhm.
volunteers and tutors and.
Who would actually, like, I couldn't oversee that. I could make the connection and get the students, but I'm being honest, like, I couldn't like man that. Not right now.
We could, that's something to figure out. I just didn't know if that was an opportunity that.
I'm turning 50, I've learned how to say no. Like, I do my boundaries, but yeah,
Okay, so I think we're in agreement. We're gonna move
Okay.
forward.
Good luck.
that's a yes.
That's a yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
Thanks.
good stuff.
Okay, 5.2, communication table, policy number 1440, discussion.
Okay. Because this goes in your calendar, it needs to, a couple things need to be taken a look at. One is that we have an assistant superintendent of, or assistant superintendent. So the assistant superintendent, in some cases, for example, under curriculum, what we'd be proposing, this from the cabinet myself, curriculum would be teacher, building principal, assistant superintendent, and then the superintendent. We've recommended that where you have behavior, I think it's the fourth column down, it says behavior, and we would recommend that that's a student discipline. So it's a little clearer in terms of what that's all about. And then on the last page, right now, where it says transportation, we would suggest that that be transportation, student issues. And then take out the terminal manager and put in building principal and then supervisor of transportation or whatever title we ultimately decide upon. And then for the last column, instead of driver / personnel, it just say transportation. We got transportation question for a driver or personnel, that would be the terminal manager first, and then the supervisor of transportation. So no substantive material changes, just basically title changes and clarities. So if that's okay with you, we'll make those changes. We'll put this in the calendar, and then this will go to the policy committee so we put in the pipeline the right way.
Thank you.
Is that okay?
Yes,
Yep.
good.
Good. Thank you. Appreciate it.
We're good. Okay, 5.3, on recommendation of the superintendent, a motion to approve the recommendations of the committee on preschool special education and special education. And be it resolved that the Board of Education confirms the recommended placements. A motion, please.
Motion.
Thank you, Mary.
Second.
Thank you, Christine. Discussion. Roll call.
Amy O'Brien.
Aye.
Mary Collins.
Aye.
Michael Fabra.
Aye.
Lynn Lockwood.
Aye.
and Christine Webb.
Aye.
Motion passed. 5.4 to approve, discussion to approve the agreement with Hearts and Hands. Is that correct?
That's supposed to be recommendation.
Okay. Upon recommendation of the superintendent to approve the agreement with Hearts and Hands as attached. Have a motion, please.
A motion.
Thank you, Christine.
Second.
Thank you, Mike. Discussion. Roll call.
Amy O'Brien.
Aye.
Mary Collins.
Aye.
Michael Fabra.
Aye.
Lynn Lockwood.
Aye.
and Christine Webb.
Aye.
Motion passed. 5.5. At a regular meeting of the Board of Education of the Chenango Forks Central School District, the board held on July 27th, 2021. Okay. Now therefore be it resolved as follows, the board hereby authorizes the school district to join the School Alliance as a cooperative participant to enter into the intermunicipal agreement with the term effective beginning July 1, 2021 through June 30th, 2026, and to contract with and share in the costs and expenses of a labor relations specialist in the form approved by legal counsel. This resolution shall take effect immediately. Have a motion, please.
Motion.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Lynn. Discussion. Roll call.
Amy O'Brien.
Aye.
Mary Collins.
Aye.
Mike Fabra.
Aye.
Lynn Lockwood.
Aye.
Christina.
Aye.
Motion passed. 5.6, upon recommendation of the superintendent, a motion to approve the retainer agreement with Coughlin and Gerhart LLP and the Chenango Forks Central School District for attorney fees and authorize the board president to sign as attached. We have a motion, please.
Motion.
Thank you, Mike. One second. Thank you, Lynn. Discussion.
I have a question. In the past, we've used many different lawyers within that firm. Is that the case now? And can we preference?
We have had one that's been assigned to us, Nathan Lee.
Mhm.
And if he is either unavailable or the issue is something other than his area of expertise, then they'll assign someone who has maybe more understanding of that.
Okay.
So that's typically been the agreement, but Nate is the go-to person. He's the one that's always the first call.
Okay. Thank
And
you.
you're comfortable with them?
Mhm.
Yes.
Alright.
And is there anything we need to do if we want to eliminate one and not use one, or is that just a common understanding?
I think if you were to let me know who that might be, I could talk with them about it if you've had a bad
Well,
experience.
it would be a conflict of interest if we didn't want to use somebody. Right? Wouldn't it be like
They have many partners in their
Sure.
firm.
Yeah.
And we've worked with.
you
a
like the
handful,
one,
And
okay.
we're very happy with Nate, correct? Everybody comfortable, Mike, you? Not as much with
So
past. Mhm.
He's the one that's assigned to us at this point in time.
So he's our primary.
And then if he feels that he needs to go to someone with more expertise in that or experience in that particular area, he'll either consult with them and get back to us, or he'll have them call.
Thank you.
Can this be discussed further in executive session too?
Sure.
Is that possible?
That's a
Okay.
personnel.
Thank you.
Roll call.
Amy O'Brien.
Aye.
Mary Collins.
Aye.
Michael Fabra.
Aye.
Lynn Lockwood.
Aye.
Christina.
Aye.
Motion passed. Okay, 6.1, NISBA conference discussion.
Quick discussion. Is there anybody interested in going?
Amy wants us all to.
I do. I have team
It's
spirit.
Mike
I want us
Fabra.
all to go.
Mike
It is
Fabra.
Hugely education. It's huge
I'm sure.
education.
Mike is the
And,
holdout.
You had fun. You can go. Not stopping you. Yeah, it's a good, it's a very good conference, actually.
It's a lot to learn. I will go, but I will not go alone. I've gone twice before and it was phenomenal. But I would not be interested in going alone.
Has anyone else gone on the board?
Rochester.
Rochester.
Mhm.
Mike, have you gone in the past?
Mhm.
No. Time?
Yeah, mostly. It's never a good time.
I don't think anybody went my first year, and then last year was COVID. So.
Mhm. It was virtual last year.
When do we have to know it by?
Yesterday.
This yesterday answer has been kind of.
It's an easy thing.
Yeah, it's, the issue is gonna be the hotels
Bus and
filling up.
hotels, yeah.
Mhm.
It's in New York City this year.
New York City, yeah.
They start booking in August, right? August 1st, is that when it starts?
I thought it was
I just read
earlier.
on there.
I
I thought
think
it was-
probably we should start booking now, I think, yeah.
Are you going? Are you
Not at the moment.
Okay.
Are you going?
No,
Why?
we have to take vacation time to go.
I will say, if you go, you need to get it in quickly, because I know Amy and other people have been stuck at some place way away from where the actual
Mhm.
Yeah, you want to get,
conference is, and that's critical.
You want to go? For sure, because I'm not going to New York City by myself. So
I got the street smarts. We're good.
I've got an audience, so you're gonna, all right,
Mike Babra is gonna,
because I
Turn.
believe that we have an opportunity for
Better stop.
transit, group transportation, so we don't have to drive, right?
right.
Okay,
No.
a bus will be.
Sorry,
provi-
I'm not picking on you.
No, that's fine.
It's
You're
fun,
not gonna turn. me.
and you get
I
pens.
understand. October is a busy
No, I
time
know, I
for
You
me,
get lots
especially
of
on
free
weekends.
pens when you
No,
go
I
to
know,
the
yeah,
convention.
sports and kids.
It's a busy time of the
No,
year.
I know.
I get some of my pens,
No.
okay.
We
All
got
right.
Amy and Chris?
Yes.
Okay,
No,
I will
really?
let folks know.
Okay.
So transportation and hotel will start the process.
Yep, and we will bring back a report to share with the board. It's kind of an expectation I set the first
What
year,
happens
so-
in New York City stays. I'm just
All right,
kidding. We'll have a report.
we will, and hopefully you guys will change your mind soon. All right, 6.2 capital project update discussion.
Okay, we've had 2 committee meetings and the last one I think was pretty productive. What's going to happen at this stage of the game is that the drawings are going to be submitted to the state and that they will show an 8-lane pool with 2 warm-up lanes, the bulkhead. The locker rooms, bathrooms, and gallery are included. The drawings will show approximately a 3,800 square foot room space for a fitness center. And it will be located in the pool area and the general phys ed area, athletic wing of the building. And in order to leverage our state aid and keep momentum, we are at this point meeting with our financial advisors and state ed and looking at the financing for a second project to complement this one, which will complete the fitness center and also focus most particularly on the middle school. Middle school at this stage of the game really is in need of some attention and serious attention. And we're in the process of finishing the walkthroughs with the architects for all 3 of the buildings. The architects have a check sheet from the state, which will prioritize what they find. And those issues that are of the highest priority will be those that we will address and then go down as far of that list as we can. But we need to get the middle school taken care of at this point in time. So hopefully that will be a project that will be ongoing and begin at some point during the pool project and likely end very much the same time. So we're looking at the submittal of the drawings, and that will tell us, based upon what their response is, how we're gonna do. But that's where we are at this particular point in time.
So with the fitness room, what changed from when Tamco was here and presented?
What would a second project, so we can divide the costs.
Okay, where did they get the space for the room? Because originally they said there wasn't space for the room.
Basically where the mechanical units are gonna be, they're gonna push the mechanical units out a little bit and then have a space where those go. Technically labeled, I think it's maybe labeled storage right there on the plans.
Yeah,
for now.
yeah.
Not, they don't want to label it fitness center. for the
Yeah.
state, but then so it's right above the pool.
And it's a good size, like it's what we
Yeah.
want, like we're not compromising.
It was pretty much almost the original size from the first drawings.
It's right next to mechanical units, you said?
Yeah, they're gonna be pushed off. I mean, it's not.
In a separate.
Will they
room. There'd be a
generate a
wall.
lot? I'm just thinking about heat generation from those units into a fitness center. Is that a
Yeah.
non-issue?
Guess-
Could be concerned about it.
Yeah, no one seemed to be concerned about it, so.
You saw the drawings, Mike?
They don't have drawings yet.
Not yet. That's what they're
It
working
was
on.
just, where they just showed where they could put it.
Okay.
They said it's a lot, like they said, it's a lot easier to build up than it is to build down. Yep, so, because we can't, like we go back to the whole digital footprint, then you can't go outside that.
Yeah, they don't like to go outside the footprint.
And 70.1 is an FYI. 7.2, resolved upon the recommended action, the recommendation of the superintendent schools that the Board of Education does and hereby approves the attached transfer of funds during the 2021-22 school year.
Motion.
Thank you, Mike.
Second.
Thank you, Lynn. Discussion? Roll call.
Amy O'Brien.
Aye.
Mary Collins.
Aye.
Michael Fabra.
Aye.
Lynn Lockwood.
Aye.
and Christine Webb.
Aye.
Motion passed. 7.3, thank you. Be it resolved that the Board of Education retain as surplus funds $1,327,358 from the total fund balance of $5,784,345 after applying $500,000 to the reduction of the tax levy. Motion, please.
Motion.
Thank you, Mike.
Second.
Thank you, Lynn. Discussion?
Gray, real words, what does it mean?
What it means is that you're going to apply from fund balance that was left over $500,000 apply it toward the levy
Okay,
to bring.
so
the
right,
levy down,
bring down the tax base a little bit. So that'll help next year in budgets and stuff.
hopefully.
Okay, thank you.
Roll call.
Amy O'Brien.
Aye.
Mary Collins.
Aye.
Michael Fabra.
Aye.
Lynn Lockwood.
Aye.
Christine Webb.
Aye.
Motion passed. 8.1, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, a motion to approve the Board of Education minutes from the June 25th, 2021 special meeting and the July 1, 2021 reorganizational meeting as attached. Motion, please.
Motion.
Thank you, Mary.
Second.
Thank you, Mike. Discussion. Roll call.
Amy O'Brien.
Aye.
Mary Collins.
Aye.
Michael Fabra.
Aye.
Lynn Lockwood.
Aye.
and Christine Webb.
Aye. Motion passed. 9.1. A motion for consideration of executive session to discuss collective negotiations pursuant to Article 14 of the Civil Service Law and Personnel.
Motion.
Thank you, Mike.
Second. I'll second.
Thank you, Christine. Discussion. Roll call.
Amy O'Brien.
Aye.
Mary Collins.
Aye.
Michael Fabra.
Aye.
Lynn Lockwood.
Aye.
and Christine Webb.
Motion passed. Will we be taking any action when we come back out?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't anticipate that.
Okay. All right. No anticipated action. So have a good evening, everyone.